only read one business book this year that's not written by me, I want you to read a business sports book. I want you to just pick up a copy of Every Town is a Sports Town by George Bodenheimer, who went from working in the mailroom at ESPN in 1981 to becoming the cable sports network's longest-serving president from 1998 through 2011. And then its executive chairman, a position he stepped down from in 2014. It is hard to overstate just how much ESPN, which now belongs to Cramer fave Disney, has completely changed the way we learn about and watch sports in this country. Just one example, was incredibly difficult to watch college sports before ESPN came along. But now you can watch all sorts of NCAA games, and filling out March Madness brackets has become a national pastime. Oh, by the way, don't get me started on fantasy football. Bodenheimer's book takes you through the rise of ESPN from a scrappy underdog at a time when cable was treated as a bit of a joke into a worldwide leader in sports that it is today. Oh, and I think this is really great, and why I think you should buy it for your dad or buy it for, your brother. He's donating all the royalties from Every Town is a Sports Town to the V Foundation for Cancer Research, Jimmy V. Now, earlier this week, I got a chance to catch up with George. Take a look. George, you're a great success story. You started in the mailroom of what may be the greatest cable or maybe just broadcast everywhere. It doesn't matter, TV entity. How did you work your way up?
I was fortunate, Jim, to be with a great company that promoted from within and literally never stopped growing. In fact, it still is growing after all these years, nearly 35 years later. So got with a good company, had a lot of mentors, and just grew with the company is the answer.
But, look, it could have been Sports Illustrated. When you and I were growing up, it could have been Sport. How did you know it was going to be ESPN?
Well, we didn't at the early days. I mean, we were happy to be there. Most of us were, 24 years old. We were happy to be employed, working in sports, and nobody could really tell you we knew what it was going to grow into, trying to fulfill Bill Rasmussen's vision for a 24-hour sports network.
All right, so you start humble, and the company starts humble. Now, just a year ago, the New York Times is saying you're in charge, that ESPN, well, it's not yours, this is your book, Every Town's a Sports Town, but that ESPN has become so powerful that they now determine the weekends the teams play, they determine the schedule. Is ESPN going from being this humble company to being the most important force in sports?
Well, I don't know if it's the most important force in sports. It certainly has grown over the years, and then we have contracts with many conferences and pro leagues, as you know, and so we've got a bit. ESPN has a big reach. I'm no longer there. I keep saying we, but I did leave the company last May. But it certainly has a big reach and influences the sports conversation in the United States.
Now, ESPN. When I see what you guys did, what was your best thing that you did, and what was the worst move you made?
I think the best thing we did was actually launch the notion of 24-hour sports. That's how I got the title, Jim. Every Town is a Sports Town. When I was running around Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, trying to sell ESPN to mom-and-pop cable operators, it was like, hey, we have this 24-hour sports network. We'd like you to put it on your 12-channel cable system. And I got the same answer regardless of where I was. It was, George, 24-hour sports sounds like a crazy idea.
Right.
Why would anybody need that? But we'll put it on if you're giving it away, which we were at the time, because this is a sports town. And I quickly learned that every town in America, your hometown of Philadelphia is a great example, right? New York, but it doesn't matter where you are. Every town in this country is a sports town.
But how many ESPN channels do we really need?
Well, that number hasn't been answered yet. ESPN is still
you think
growing.
There's a saturation level? You're not there. You can say it.
I don't think so. I mean, we've never overestimated the demand for sports in this country. I mean, people love sports. It's part of the fabric of the United States. So,
do you think that fantasy is at a whole new level for ESPN?
Fantasy is definitely continuing to grow. I think ESPN has helped fuel that, made a recent investment, of course, and it's been great for sports because it increases their interest in sports.
How independent is ESPN? I felt that there was a kind of a break with the commissioner in the NFL over the domestic violence. I mean, it was almost like when Cronkite broke with the president about Vietnam. Is it that powerful?
Well, I think it shows you that ESPN functions as a journalistic entity, and our producers and our Sports Center producers and anchors, they are reporting the news as they see it. And as the management of ESPN at the time, obviously they're free to do that as long as they do it responsibly and not make it personally. That's their job. And that's what they need to do to continue to serve fans. I mean, ESPN is focused on its mission, Jim, to serve sports fans. And the day that ESPN starts softening the news because this person or that person isn't going to like what's being said, the fans will see through that.
But you have a mission, too. You're donating your proceeds for your book, for Every Town is a Sports Town, to a foundation that a lot of us who have watched a particular 30 for 30 can never get over. I want you to spend a second talking about it.
Oh, thank you. One of the greatest nights of ESPN ever was March 1993 at the first ever ESPYs at the Madison Square Garden. Jimmy Valvano was awarded the first Arthur Ashe Award for courage. He barely made it to New York, much less get on stage that night. And for the 10, 12 minutes that he gave that speech, it was out of this world. It was the most inspirational thing you'll ever see. And that night, he announced we formed the V Foundation for Cancer Research. And since that night, we've raised $150 million for cancer research. I'm very involved in the foundation. I head up a fundraising campaign. So yes, all of my proceeds from the sale of this book are being donated to the V.
Are you surprised there's a backlash to Caitlyn Jenner getting the award this year?
No. I mean, I think, people are entitled to their opinions, and obviously Caitlyn is a big story in the United States, so I'm not really surprised. And I'm proud of the company, and the company has a long legacy of great things doing with the Arthur Ashe Award.
That's George Bodenheimer. He's the former president of ESPN and the author of the new book, Every Town is a Sports Town. I know we certainly agree with that. Mad Money's back after the break. Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.